The essence of basketball. I don't know if you can be a basketball player without experience.
All radio.
My name is Bobbito Garcia, a.k.a. Cool Bob Love. And the illustrious co-host, co-producer, co-mentor, co-everything, my man, my mellow.
Eric Newman on the West Coast. I do not have that fluttery voice or floater, but I am thrilled to be back for our latest episode. Welcome to the show, the one, the only, Dee Brown, former Boston Celtic, former slam dunk champion, NBA veteran, proud father
yes.
of a WNBA star as well. Dee, welcome to B-Ball Radio. We are very excited to have you here.
Yo, Dee, I have to say, I saw a photo of you and Larry Bird, doing a 3-point sort of shootout. I'm wondering, that has to, maybe that wasn't a confidence builder, shooting against homeboy. It's like it just.
That was, hold on, that picture, I know the picture you talk about, and Larry looks just so big. I look like a little kid watching like this. I look like a middle school kid watching a varsity player shoot on the sideline. Like if you see the picture, you don't realize how big Larry Bird is until you walk up on Larry Bird. Like he's a big dude. Right. He's he's legitimate 6'9", and that was every day. Like that picture was summed up my rookie year. That was every day before practice, every day after practice. And it built confidence in a way that he would trust me to come shoot with him. And he wanted to kind of, show me what hard working is. Like, you know what, you want to be a great shooter. It ain't just doing practice. It ain't, a few minutes before, a few minutes after. You got to put some time in. And that was a ritual. That was it. It came to a point like I knew I had to be there 2 hours before. And I knew that 2 hours after practice, I had to shoot with him, rebound, pass, get shots with him, play shooting games. And, I lost a lot of money, Larry Bird, So, but the great thing with Larry was that, I remember I'm going back to date myself. I remember writing him a check and saying, here's my debt. And like a month later, he gave me the check back. He never cashed it. Like he never cashed a check. It wasn't about that. It was about winning. He wasn't going to lose, but it was about me, owning up to my, growth and making sure. I always say this, success leaves footprints. Why don't we follow them? And he was Larry Bird. Yeah. If it worked for him, he gonna work for me.
I think the lineage thing is what sums it up for me the most, Bob, about why I've loved the Celtics since I'm a kid. And obviously we're seeing a lot of that now in the Celtic City documentary, which is on HBO, which is now aired as we record this on March 31st, 4 parts. By the time we air this, we may very well be up to Dee Brown joining the Celtics in the early 90s. Dee, I think a lot of people who are watching this, and I've been saying this for a long time, are finally realizing that the issues of Boston, the city, did not represent who the Celtics were in terms of race, in terms of brotherhood. An event that happened to you is pretty well documented when you were pulled over in Boston early on in your career just for being you. What was it like getting to know the city, and what do you have to say to what I just said in terms of the difference between the city and what the Celtics represent and all that history behind it?
I love Boston. That's like my favorite city in the world, other than my hometown, Jacksonville, Florida. So, we talk about the image, of Boston, especially in the 80s, when I was watching the Celtics, when there's Heisen, on CBS, calling the games with Celtics Lakers. You kind of, people want to, is the Lakers, all the, African American players, the Celtics with, all the white players, throw in Danny Ainge and Robert Parrish. And, you start those kind of, comments, and, things happen in Boston, very unfortunate. Things that's happened to people before I got there. Bill Russell obviously documented a lot of things that happened to him. ML Carr. So there's been a lot of players that things have happened to. But like you said, it's not, to me, a total reflection on the city of Boston. We as athletes, we tend to get a quote unquote pass in certain areas or certain places or certain environments because we are athletes, and I understand that. And, it's not fair for the things that do happen in the city that are really, really impactful, that are happening to minorities, women, whoever it is. And that's every city. I'm not just saying Boston. So, you can go back to Red Auerbach, understanding the importance. Walter Brown, the first owner of the Celtics, the importance of the influx of African-American players, African-American coach, African-American GM. Like, all that stuff is Celtics. Like, we talk about the history of Boston, but the one franchise that did things for African-American players before anybody was the Celtics, and, we don't talk about that enough as well. Like you said, that the separation between what the Celtics pride is and culture is, and the city of Boston, we just lump it all together. And sometimes that wasn't fair. And even an incident that happened to me, I wasn't pulled over. I was sitting in my car. I was sitting in my car in a parking lot at a post office across from a bank that had just got robbed, a few days before. And, I got identified as the bank robber that came in there and robbed the bank, and, long story short, it became a big issue that, again, being, black and, being in certain spaces, areas, cities in Boston, while you here and getting targeted for that. And it was just an unfortunate situation. I hated it to happen to me. I remember my granddad, when I first got drafted by the Celtics, older black man from the South, told me that I'm going up north. That was his statement to me. You're going up north. I go, what do you mean? I mean, he said, going up south. That's what he said. And I said, I don't understand what that means. And he goes, when you get up there, you understand. Because again, the conversation from people in the South about going, especially if you're playing, obviously, sports, going to Boston, you got to be careful. It's like being in the South. And I remember that when this incident happened, and the Wellesley incident happened, that's the first person I thought about was my granddad. Like, oh, this is what he's talking about. But then again, you start going, into your mind and you kind of thinking about, the situation that happened, how it happened, and identify that, me being mistaken as a robber and stuff like that. So, but listen, Boston has the greatest fans. Boston is an unbelievable city. I've been to a lot of games, and since I've retired, been to a lot of events, like I said, with the family. So I would never, ever say that I did not love Boston. That incident was an incident. And, I learned a lot. I think a lot of people learned a lot from the incident. That was kind of my primary reason for the things that I did in Wellesley, with the, with the police department, with the mayor, with, different people that we identified to help grow the relationship between, obviously, me. I ended up moving into Wellesley right after that incident. Like, so I didn't leave the city of Wellesley. I ended up staying there and loved it, and spent a lot of time there and had my basketball camps there in Wellesley as well. So, you hate to hear the stigma. You're always going to hear it. You can say that about every city, but like you said, it always kind of gets attached to the Celtics for some reason. Maybe because, again, maybe some of the best players that played, for the Celtics were white. You go back to Havlicek and Kuzi and Bird, and all the great players. So whatever it is, I just always felt that was always a disservice to the great things that the organization did, has done, and still doing in Boston.
Everybody probably wants to talk to you about the Reebok pump moment and the NBA dunk contest in 1991, which you won. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to know, who was Dee Brown and what was he wearing prior to that moment? Because I've done some research. I've seen you had possibly the Nike double teams on when you were playing at Jacksonville. You might have had a Vias on in Jacksonville too, but what was you wearing in high school?
Vias, yeah. I would. Yeah, Via.
Yeah, I mean, yes, and how did you arrive at having a contract at Reebok? Because, I mean, Danny Ainge wore Reeboks for the Celtics, the 5600 model, which was rocking, but it wasn't over the top, and it wasn't like the killer that the pumps, became.
Obviously coming out of college, a small school, I wasn't in a, big university, so we wore whatever. One year we wore Via, one year we wore Nike. And I wore whatever the school gave us, and that's kind of how it was at Jacksonville University. So when I got drafted by the Celtics, obviously I had, being a first-round pick, you have the opportunity to sign with Nike. But Reebok was very aggressive for two reasons. Number one, they're locally based. They're in Stoughton at that time, Massachusetts. So to me, it was a no-brainer that a local brand, Reebok, and I kind of knew Dominique was wearing it before too as well. So Dominique kind of was a guy that I knew was wearing Reebok. That was really the only basketball player, big name guy that was wearing Reebok at that time. I was like an all-star level guy. And it was a no-brainer because it was local. Like, why would I, if I wanted to grow myself in the brand, pick a place that was obviously growing in basketball a little bit, trying to get their foot, into the doors with basketball. Because they were like, aerobics and all this stuff. Reebok was a big brand, right behind Nike. It's like 1 and 2. Yeah. And, and they're going to pay me to wear shoes. I don't think Nike was going to pay me. They'd probably just go give me shoes because I was a low pick. I was a 19th pick. And I wasn't high on their priority list, but Reebok made me a priority when I got to Boston. It was a win-win for both parties initially before the dunk contest. This is before the dunk contest. This is going into my rookie year. That's how I got with Reebok.
The other athlete, of course, on the Celtics wearing Reebok at the time, and Dee, we talked about this a little bit the first time we connected, was Reggie Lewis. So Reggie had the reverse jams. And Dee, you step into a team that is kind of going in two directions at that point, and obviously you play with three legends.
We're already going to about the Celtics, man. Like, geez,
well,
Louise.
we gotta bridge it. We gotta bridge it. So Dee, as a lifelong Celtic,
this dude, Dee, Eric loves the Celtics, Joe.
and now Bob looks great in green. But our running joke every episode is, regardless of who's on, there's a Celtic tie-in. So with you, it's kind of obvious with the jersey over your head. But can you paint a picture of just how good that team was when healthy? Because a lot of people don't remember that they had the best team record in the Eastern Conference ahead of the Bulls, which was Jordan's first championship year, and what you guys think you could have been if the injuries didn't catch up with you that season.
Right. Yeah, we were a championship team. I mean, we were going into the All-Star break. Our record was 36-5. Like, people kind of, if you look at that team, we had a great mixture of youth and veterans. It was me, Reggie, Brian Shaw, Kevin Gamble. So we were called the Zip Boys. That's what Tommy Heinsohn gave us a nickname, the Zip Boys, because it was kind of the transition to the younger backcourt. In the front court, obviously, was Larry, Kevin, and Chief. And then we had guys like Ed Pinckney and Joe Klein. So we had a very formidable front court as well with those guys. And they were still all-stars. Those three guys made the all-star team that year, my rookie year. And, right before, maybe like a couple weeks before the all-star weekend, all-star break, Larry hurt his back again. And that kind of was, we stumbled a little bit going to the all-star weekend. We found our footing, ended up losing the best record to the Bulls that year for home court advantage throughout the playoffs. Like you said, it was Michael's first championship. And we ended up losing to, at that time, the two-time world champions, Detroit Pistons. The Last Dance documentary would have been a lot different if Larry didn't get hurt. I'm going to be honest. Jordan was unbelievable that year. But I felt we had a chance to dethrone the world champions at that time, Detroit, and match up pretty well against the Bulls. It was kind of like the transition period of you seeing the more the focus of the team going from the front court to the back court. That was kind of how we were transitioning into the future, because we knew those guys were going to retire soon. We knew Larry, his back was bothering. He was going to, obviously play too many years after that, and then Kevin and then Robert. So, it was there. And then obviously, injuries happen, and, Larry, Kevin's foot started bothering him a little bit. So again, that, Father Time kind of caught up real quick with us that year. But we're one of the top teams, in not just in the East, but in the league. Our coaches were all-star coaches that year. I won the dunk contest. So that year, that all-star weekend in Charlotte, the representation for the Celtics was huge. We had all-stars, we had the coaching staff, we had myself. It was, and we don't, really don't talk about it that much because It was Jordan's first championship, and the Pistons and that whole saga between those two kind of elevated another level, and kind of like, you know what, we kind of not in that story because of those other situations that happened.
So, Bob, Dee's Game 6 in Detroit, where the Celtics end up losing in overtime, he takes over the game. Like, nobody can keep up with him. 94 feet both ways. It was a heck of a series, and Dee hit it on the head.
Yeah.
The injuries.
No, it was.
Really
You know what? That was that series, and I was a rookie, and I just remember. I remember the first two games, and we had home court advantage. We had the first two games. In the first game, I had like 12 points. In the second game, I had 22. And literally, they doubled Larry every time he touched the ball, Kevin every time he touched the ball, Robert every time he touched the ball, and Reggie every time he touched the ball. So basically, I was like playing like horse by myself the whole game in game two because nobody was guarding me. So I'll take credit for that. I had to make the shots, but I was literally wide open 90% of the game because their game plan was like, we got to take those guys out. I don't know what this young guy can do. I don't know what Dee Brown can do. I know what those four guys can do. We have no clue what this kid can do, so we don't care. If he's going to beat us, then listen, we're going to roll the dice on that. And they did. And I beat them. And I remember that was kind of my coming out game as a rookie. You know, I had good flashes during my rookie year, made our rookie team, first team. But that was kind of my coming out game. It gave me so much confidence because I was like, wow, this playoff stuff ain't as hard as people say it is. You know, like, man, all I got to do is make open shots. Well, hell, they wasn't guarding me half the game, you know. So I was very honest in my assessment on how good I was at that time. But like you said, as the series went on, I got better. I got more confident to play against Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars and Vinnie Johnson. And to me, that was such a great moment for me to be able to play against those guys who were the world champions. And then after that game two, they respected me a little bit more. They challenged me, and I had to step my game up. And I think averaging maybe 18 points a game that series as a rookie against the world champions, and that's kind of propelled my confidence because everybody still was talking about the dunk contest. You know, oh, he's just a dunker. He's a dunker. And my mindset was like, I got to show people that I'm really an NBA player. I was just a very good dunker as well. And that was kind of part of that whole process of kind of getting better against that type of team as a rookie with the type of team we had.
So, Dee, one thing really interesting about your career is the window of time. You almost play in at least two different versions of the NBA, if not three, between 1990 and 2002. And you play with Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish at the end of their career. You play with Reggie Lewis at the beginning of his prime. And then you end up playing with Vince Carter in Toronto and Tracy McGrady in Orlando. So some of the most unique talents of the time period. What was it like from your lens playing with all-time great vets and then playing with superstars in the making at the end of your career when you were the veteran?
Right. But the best part about that was just learning. You know, I got a chance to be around, true veterans when I was a rookie, my second year, and being around that and growing and understanding that those three guys, Larry, Kevin, and Chief, did so much for me as my growth as a professional in different ways. They all brought something to the table, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Dennis Johnson, who was there as well as a coach. He kind of was a guy between him and Robert, like big brothers to me. DJ had just retired the year I got there and then became part of the coaching staff and just was around all the time. So he was a guy that I leaned on a lot as well, especially being a point guard, really the next point guard after him to play with the big three. Like it was me and Brian Shaw, taking basically, trying to fill his spot. As people, have heard plenty of times, Larry Bird saying the greatest teammate he's ever had has been Dennis Johnson. So, being around those type of players and that type of leadership and that type of, people understood how to be successful. As you get older and you start, obviously, your career is changing. You go from a starter to, a role player to a six man to obviously, a veteran guy who's, playing 15, 20 minutes a game. I got a chance, like you said, to play with a young Vince Carter, rookie Vince Carter. I got traded to Toronto when Tracy was a rookie as well. So I played with them both, their rookie years. And, I just wanted to instill some of that mentorship and, culture building, how to be professional with them at a younger age. Like, like the guys did for me. And I took pride in that. Like, that was important to me. One of the reasons you always look back on your career and you go, why me? And I was I was hurt when I got traded by the Celtics. I was hurt. I thought it was going to be there my whole career. Like, I was a captain at the time. So I was hurt. Then you start looking at it and go, well, instead of why me, why not me? And the why not me is when I got to Toronto, they said, listen, you've been in one of the best, if not the best, basketball sports organization in NBA history. We want some of that here in Toronto. Like, we need that. Like, what does it take? What does it feel like? What does it look like? What do we do every day, not just on a basketball point, but from a community standpoint? How do we get that type of Celtic pride here in Toronto? And they challenged me. And as soon as I got it, Glenn Grunwald was the GM, and Butch Carter was the coach. And as soon as I stepped off the plane, they challenged me. Not, we'll see how it works out. Guess what? You're the captain. I was a captain the day I got traded to Toronto. And they told me that, like, you're coming here to be the captain because we need some of that Celtic history there. And it was me and Doug Christie at that time was captain of Toronto when I got traded there. And I took that. And so that was important to me, not that I didn't want to be in Boston, but being in Toronto, they gave me a specific responsibility, not just to be a player and contribute, because I still was contributing as a player, but we need to change the culture here. And that was the biggest part to me. And, I happened to be on the first team to get to the playoffs as a Raptor team. We made a lot of changes, brought in Charles Oakley and Antonio Davis and Kevin Willis and Muggsy Bogues and Dale Curry. I mean, like, you talking about an all-time veteran team that didn't care. All we cared about was winning. Personal accolades. We let Tracy and Vince take care of that stuff. They're the young guns. They're the new superstars. And we understood that, and that was important to us. We took pride in being veterans and mentors, and hopefully that translated. And you see, talk to people now. It's funny that people talk about Vince that way now, the old sage, the old man, and hopefully we had an impact on his young career to understand how important it is to give that back, and he does that. Him and Tracy, they do it at multiple levels. If it's television, if it's, with, youth basketball or whatever it is, hopefully we had an impact on that. And that to me, that's kind of like my legacy, more than anything, is that I was impactful to guys that I played with. They knew I cared, but I was also very honest. No matter who it was, if I was, talking to the best player on the team or the guy that was, sitting on the bench, they understood that all I cared about was the growth of the environment and the culture, and that was important to me.
Something that I feel is missing on the playground right now is that sort of mentorship, right? And I hear a lot of older players being like, oh, the kids, they're not out there, but they actually are. The pluralistic ignorance that's happening is that the older players aren't out there, right? And that's why they think that the kids are playing video games, because they're not present. So, and you're coming up in Jacksonville, who were the mentors outdoors on the asphalt that took you and be like, yo, come on, B, we're going to play one-on-one, or we're going to stay out late? What were some of your experiences like? Let's get out of the high school and the AAU and the college and all that. Let's talk strictly playground. Where were you going? What was the 80s in Jacksonville, to hit?
Oh, yeah. That's a great question. That's one of the best things I like to talk about, because in the 80s, obviously, AAU wasn't as prevalent as travel ball. We had one team in the 80s that left the state of Florida. It was Team Florida. And if you didn't make that team, you never left the state. You just played and you just stayed there. You had 500 kids trying out for one team. And it was Team Florida. And in Jacksonville, we had a few parks. One called was Burnett Park. Was funny. It was right down the street from JU. And that was a big part. It was a part, on the other side of town. That was called Riverside Park. That was you want to cut your teeth and get your reputation up. Those are the two parks you went to. and there's another park called Bruce Park. And those three parks were the big parks in Jacksonville. And you understood in Florida, it's different than probably other states. We play basketball year round. The weather's nice, we got a chance to be outside all the time. Just be home before the street lights come on. That was a rule. Just go play all day. So all we did was play at the park. It's funny, the gravitation of playing at the park when I was younger. We used to play this game called dunk ball. Dunk ball was basically you go to this middle school, and the hoops were 8 feet because it was middle school kids.
The bitty courts. Yeah, we call it the bitty courts in New York.
And we'll play full court. Yeah, we'll play full court called dunk ball. We had rules. Like you couldn't goaltend a jump shot. If it was in the paint, you could block in, knock it off the rim. So basically, that's how I kind of learned how to dunk, was playing dunk ball.
Is that right?
Yeah, how to dunk on people, practice dunks. Going from middle school to high school, we used to always play dunk ball every Sunday morning, no matter all the way through high school.
I love it.
So
wait, so you learned this one playing
I never
dunk
did
ball?
that there. I never did that until the dunk contest. But I learned how to copy Michael Jordan and Ron Harper and Dominique Wilkins and all those guys, on the 8-foot basket, and playing dunk ball. So the main park that I used to go to was Bruce Park. And Bruce Park had a guy there, and his name was Tennessee. And I still talk to Tennessee now. Tennessee was arguably the best park player I ever played against in my life. And he was so good. He went to college and played, didn't make it, but he was always at the courts. There's another guy named Kenny, who was like the guy that he messed the game up all the time. Like, the one guy that always messed the game up, Kenny. Like,
foul, my
Kenny,
boy.
Foul,
it's
foul, traveling. I got my 5. You always hit like, come on, Kenny, man, you do this every weekend. And but Tennessee was that dude that was kind of a mentor to me, and he was good friends with my uncles. So I would go to the park as a young kid, and they would put me on a team, and they were, you'd be protected by the older, mature, physical guys. But I got a chance to play with the older guys at a young age. And it was my uncles and Tennessee, a couple other people. But that was kind of, my trainer. When I went to college and came back, I was in the same city, I would go to that park and play in the summertime, right? Because those guys were still there. And it was great. You learn how to play. You didn't want to lose. It wasn't like AAU, you win at 9, lose at 9 o'clock, you play at 11, play at 5, play at 7. At the park, you lose, you will sit all day.
Yeah.
Brother, we didn't want to do that. It's too hot in Florida to be sitting out all day.
Right.
You want to be playing, So you learn how to value winning. Like, man, I ain't trying to lose today. I'm going to pick the best squad that can win. I ain't trying to pick dudes shoot all the balls up. I ain't trying to shoot dudes that go make the game bad. And, to me, that part of learning how to play basketball helped me. It helped me, as I transitioned to college and pro. I always say this, and Bobbito, you know this. You'll never hear the word again, playground legend. You're not going to hear that anymore. Like nobody talks about that. Man, you remember we talk about it old days. Baltimore, Boston, New York, L.A. They all got playground legends. Who are the playground legends now? Like, and you said like maybe some of the old heads don't go out there as much as they used to, whatever it is, whatever reason it is, because it's nice and cushy in the gym and the AC going on, and you can pick teams and sign board and all that stuff like it. Back in the day, you just showed up and you can get there early and you get your 5 on the court. You might be sitting there watching all day. So playground legends kind of help you figure out the game, figure out yourself, figure out what you need to work on, how tough you can be. Not saying these, like you said, not saying these kids are not in the park or playing. They're out in the park. You see it all the time. I think it's coming back. You see a lot of things on social media, guys at the park playing one-on-one competition in the street. So it's there,
the energy is definitely pumped up with the 1v1. There's whole kids that have like 500,000 followers, and all they do is go park to park playing
park to park. So
they call it 1v1. The first time somebody said 1v1, I said, I thought they was talking a different language. I was like, what?
Yeah.
He had to say it 3 times. Like, oh, you mean one-on-one? Yeah, okay.
One-on-one, we can play 1v1. So it's changed a little bit. So, but you can see it's coming. You see it's coming back, and people are taking pride of playing.
On the lines of 1v1, right? Is there a particular moment in your history? Now, it could be, having played one-on-one versus Reggie Lewis or Larry Bird or Vince Carter, or maybe it was Tennessee, or maybe it was your homeboy Kenny who wouldn't shut up.
Right.
Is there one standout moment of one-on-one that sticks out in your mind as like the most fond?
I'm gonna tell two versions. I'm gonna tell a moment that I knew that I was really good. Then I'm gonna tell you a version that I was like, okay, it's time for me to retire. And so, listen, I'm honest. Like I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna let you know. So
I bet.
So Alvin Williams, he was like a little brother to me. So we would always play one-on-one in the summertime, off season, right? And it got to a point that I probably beat him for like a month straight. I didn't lose a game. And he would get so mad at me that he wanted to fight. He's a Philly boy. He was like, you ain't gonna be doing me like this. We're gonna just have to fight. Bump it.
They call
crazy
21 and Philly roughhouse.
Yeah.
He was roughhouse. It's like no fouls. Like Philly is hard body.
He was like, yo, bump all this basketball stuff. We just gonna fight. Because you ain't gonna be talking crazy to me like this. Beat my behind and talking crazy. And we'd laugh about it because I still talk to him. We'd laugh about it. So fast forward to my my 12th year in the league, we're playing in the summertime, and Chucky Atkins. Remember Chucky Atkins? I had a flashback because Chucky did me the same way I did Alvin, but he was younger.
You want to fight him?
Beat me. Oh my God, he beat me so bad, and I was like my 12th year. My knees were hurting, my hips. I was like, and I couldn't beat him. It's like and he was like up and coming, 3rd, 4th year, and I remember like, man, I could fight this kid. Like, and I knew him since he was in high school. I was like, man, I ain't going out like this. We're gonna have to fight too. And I was like, wait a minute. That's like, yeah, it's time for me to retire because I can't stop nobody. It was crazy. I couldn't slide no more, couldn't jump no more like I used to. Stuff I used to get away with, So playing, to me, like you say, playing one-on-one and that kind of stuff. I remember playing in college all the time. We used to always play full court one-on-one. To me, that's the best workout.
Florida mid 80s. There's no Miami Heat. There's no Orlando Magic. If you're watching college hoops, Florida State and the Gators are not challenging the Big East at that time. So you're playing in the park all the time. You're honing your game. Who are you emulating when it comes to college and NBA at that point?
People always say Florida's a football state, and it is. Let's be honest. My two favorite players in college was Joe Dumars and Ron Harper. I used to watch them because they're like two-way players. More Ron Harper because he was like lanky like me, athletic like me. Joe Dumars, I got a chance just to watch him more when he got to the Pistons, less McNeese State, because obviously McNeese State wasn't on TV. More when he got to the Pistons, of his professionalism, how he went about his job, how he was respected. So those are the guys I kind of watch, emulated my game. Obviously, I wasn't big enough to be Magic. I wasn't, a great ball handler like Isaiah Thomas, but I did, watch those guys as point guards growing up. But it was more, like you said, the guys that I tried to kind of, pattern my game after. It was kind of like guys like that, Kevin Johnson's, John Stockton. You get a chance to see those guys all the time. The closest NBA team to Jacksonville at that time was Atlanta Hawks. And that's when, Dominique was playing, Spud Webb was there, Doc Rivers was there. So again, but, just the viewership, it wasn't like it is now where you can go jump on League Pass or, pop on an app or get on TV. It's pretty much whoever was on TV, that's who your favorite players were at that time.
Yeah. Did you ever get up to the Omni in Atlanta and see Neek
I played
live?
I never saw him. The first NBA game I ever went to was in Jacksonville, and it was like I was in 7th grade, and the Spurs came back to play the Bulls, and Artis was playing with the Bulls, and George Gervin was playing with the Spurs. And I remember meeting him. I was like, this is the biggest human being I've ever seen in my life. There's no way I can be able to play in the NBA. There's no way.
He was officially 7'2", right?
Yeah, he was big. He was huge.
But he
and
was also a strong dude. People talk about how
strong.
strong Will Chamberlain was. Artis Gilmore
No,
might be right in that
no,
same
you
weight
ask anybody
class.
who played against him, who's the strongest player they ever played against, they'll say Artis Gilmore. Without
Yeah.
question. Don't shake his hand. He
Yeah.
would squeeze your hand till he breaks your bones. But the nicest guy. So I remember that was the first game I ever seen. So I never got a chance to go to Atlanta to the Omni to go watch a game live when I was younger. But again, you start thinking like, man, but I played in the Omni. When I got to the league, I played in those old arenas that are not around anymore. That you envision playing in, like the Forum.
They're almost like mythic.
Yeah, they're not around anymore because obviously, new stadiums are coming up with, suites and all that stuff and all the fancy boards and things like that. But, hey, you got to generate that revenue, boy. So I get it. But I enjoy playing those old places that I used to watch on TV as a young kid.
Late in your career, you become a father. When did you know that Lexie was going to follow in your footsteps and pursue the game the way she has?
Oh, wow. I didn't know that she was going to be, really focused on basketball too. She was like 10 years old. She was in ballet. She was a really good tennis player, but she's more of a social butterfly. So she wanted to be around a team. That's when I realized she wanted to be, the best player in the country. And she worked. She worked her game. She went from an unknown player to, top 10 player in the country to a McDonald's All-American to, Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Georgia. We moved out of Florida to Georgia. Like, so, going to Maryland for 2 years and going to the Final Four, her first 2 years, and then going to Duke and being a 3-time All-American, one of the first players to be a 3-time All-American at 2 different schools. Like, so she's had a more storied career than I have. It's funny now. It used to be is Dee Brown your dad? To her now is Lexie Brown your daughter. like it's switched real quick. Like she is more popular and has more of a social following than I do. And you know what? I love it. I love it. Like, how great is that?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love it. That's
what
beautiful.
dads want. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's the oldest,
of course.
and I got another daughter that played college basketball that didn't play after. She's just in school getting her master's. And my son, he's the youngest, and he's a freshman. And he's finding his way.
That's beautiful. Listen, D, I think this might be the last question, and it might be a tough one for you, but it might not be. Layup line in all your years, even it could be like you were in the park, and cats is playing music on a boombox in the '80s.
Mm-hmm.
Pick one song that got you the most amped to play basketball leading up to either the checkup we saw in the 5-on-5 or to the whistles blowing.
Ooh. In the 80s, I'm gonna say Run DMC Suck MC.
Woo! That's a killer right there.
Every time I hear that, every time I hear the first part, suck at MCs who did not learn. If you don't this time, we shall return. That right there, that gets you going. Just think of just that line. That line's historic. Sucker MCs who did not learn. If you don't this time, we shall return.
Boy,
you start, that right there, that's checkup ball right there. I mean, you can't get no old school than that. I'm gonna give you a funny story. So this is how I got introduced to hip hop. It was in high school. It was like 83, 84. And it was a kid that moved from New York City. He was a white kid. His name was, I remember his name, his good friend, Curtis Dahl. He's from the Bronx, right? White kid. He came down. He had so much flavor. I mean, he was like, he had the belt buckle. He had the parachute pants. I was like, yo, where you from? He's like, yo, I'm from New York, son. I was like, oh, okay. And he had, so dude, hold on. So it's funny. So he used to have the double tape deck, the braided with the double tapes.
Yeah.
Like, he had all these mixtapes from 98.7. And the first time I heard LL Cool J Rock the Bells was with him. I remember it's like it was yesterday.
That's hard.
It's like LL Cool J is hard. And I heard that for the first time. Yeah. And I was like, yo, what is this? He's like, yo. And then all of a sudden he put out the cardboard in the dorm room because he lived in the dorms because he was a boarding student. he put his cardboard and started breakdancing. I was like, yo, yo, this is awesome, man. You got to teach me that.
Who knew? Who knew that Dee
right?
Brown, the dunk contest champion,
Contest winner,
the
learned hip-hop
iconic
from-
sneakerhead,
Yes.
Reebok pump joint
Oh,
is
gosh.
like a hip hop head to the core.
Oh,
Wow, I
my
love it.
goodness. It was
I love it. I love it.
Literally, Bob, pumped up before the pumps. Pun intended.
Yeah, no doubt, no
Yes.
doubt.
Oh,
For sure.
It all makes sense to me now. It all
makes sense.
Yeah, it all makes sense to me.
I'd be remiss to not ask Dee. Just we always talk about films and storytelling on here, along with music.
Oh, okay. This got to be the last question then.
This is the last question.
This
So,
is gonna be good.
two-parter. One
This
is
is
what's
gonna be good.
what's the favorite thing you have seen in Celtic City, and two, what is your favorite, most inspirational basketball film, whether it is a documentary or a feature?
Ooh,
I'm going to.
where are we going to go with this?
Well,
Come on, D. Come on, D.
This is what I'm going to do. I got to be honest. I'm a binge TV watcher, so I haven't watched Celtic City yet, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm a binge watcher. I like to watch. I don't like to watch one and be like riveted to the next. I kind of know the history already, so I want to watch it all at once. As far as basketball movies, I think the one that had the most impact on me was A Fish That Saved Pittsburgh.
Oh,
And the reason
Seth
why
Buford.
The reason why that had so much impact on me because I was a big Dr. J fan growing up, and like this is before Space Jam. Like Dr. J was before Michael Jordan. Like that was our Michael Jordan growing up. Yep. So his movie was like my Space Jam. Like, and all the famous people in that movie. You look back on it, all the famous basketball players in that movie, all the Lakers and all the different players in that movie, and just the obviously being date myself a '60s baby, astrology was a big thing, astrology. What's your sign? And that was the premise of the movie. Like, you get all the same sign together. They can line up. And to me, again, you get older, you start digging deep. Like, man, that might be a real thing. Like, you get all the people with the same sign and the same value system and feeling the same way at the same time. You might be able to win the game. That's how you build culture. But just the music in it, the lines in it, just the people in it. Seeing Dr. J do a whole monologue dunking in the park with dress shoes on. Like, to me, I was like, man, this is a bad dude. He had a whole outfit on with high heel dress shoes on, doing 360 dunks and windmills in the park. I'm like, I that's a bad man right there. I want to be Dr. J. If I can go to the park in some dress shoes and be killing.
It's some platform. It's some
platform. Man. Like,
D, wait, you still own the VHS?
I got the original VHS. Still got it.
What?
Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. I still got it. And
that's
I tell
amazing.
people about the movie, they're like, I've never heard that movie. I go, watch it. You would laugh so hard, but you would see people in there. You're like, man, that's so-and-so. That's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That's so-and-so. Just all the people in that movie.
Yeah.
And it's the funny part, I compare that movie to like a movie like Semi-Pro. Like, it's just like so funny, and it's like the comedy, but it's the basketball, it's some of the essence part of it, and some real stories and Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. But to me, that movie there was life-changing to me just because I just saw like just my heroes finally that I watched on TV in a movie about basketball, but it was another secondary story that went along with it that was unbelievable. I'm sure nobody's ever said that movie before.
We've gotten two. I think we've gotten two mentions.
Yeah, I think it's got two mentions. But no one's said it up front like as the only one. But it's gotten in a cluster.
No one has headlined the basketball cinema segment yet with the Fish. So you have made B-ball radio history, and this has been awesome. Sorry,
I honestly feel like I need to watch it again. I saw it as a kid, right? I'm born in '66, D, so I'm like just a little bit older than you. I saw it when it came out, and then I might have seen it once after that. But like now you got me curious. Like, wait, I need to go see that movie again.
Go listen to some
I
of the
don't.
one-liners. I'll say it like this: this movie you couldn't have this movie out now. Just because of just some of the things they say and some of the lines. They're so funny, and they're not offensive. It's just funny. Like really, like they're hilarious, and it's just like it's just a funny movie. Like
That's beautiful.
I can't even say it on this. It's just funny.
Well, let me say this.
I think we got to release our B-ball radio basketball watch list. From this conversation. There we go.
Yo, D, man, I'm gonna give you a virtual hug, man. I never met you. We never crossed paths, but it's been wonderful to sit here with Eric Newman, aka Coach E. New, the filmmaker, the sage, and just build with you, man. Like you got a amazing energy, man. Thank you for joining us on B-Ball Radio. I wish you the best of luck for your children, for yourself, for everything you got going on in 2025 and beyond, my brother. Peace, yo.
No, I appreciate you guys having me. I love talking basketball. I love talking history, especially Celtics history, and it's good to talk about. So I enjoy it and laugh, and you start remembering things that that happen in your career that you're gonna get a chance to talk about. So I appreciate you guys inviting me on the show.
No doubt.
Awesome. Thanks, D. Appreciate everyone listening to this episode. Please share it with your crew at B-Ball Radio on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, any other platform. Shout out to the team. This is going to be a fun edit. Dee Brown, thank you, my man, for your time. Bobbito, you already know. You are listening to B-Ball Radio. Bob, close it out.
Later. Peace. B-Ball Radio.